everybody. Welcome to today's Change Leadership Conversations on leading change in today's disruptive and fast-paced business environment. Today, I have with me Samantha Fowlds, and she's the principal consultant at Copious Boom. She has a background in applied positive psychology. She applies positive psychology to leading change management initiatives. She's worked in a variety of industries and sector. She's worked with Oracle, RBC, KPMG, and Deloitte. She's been a featured speaker on the Oracle Women's Leadership Group here in Canada, and she's been nominated for the top award for bringing positivity to organizations. I love that. I love that. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
We're excited to talk all things positive psychology or applied positive psychology, as especially in today's business environment where we're going through so many changes. I thought we had it really fast paced. I thought things were changing very quickly with all of the technology changes. But now that we are going through a period of COVID-19, and we're right bang in the middle of it. Things are changing faster than ever before, and it's definitely disrupting our business environment. So, welcome, and I'm excited to get into it. One of the things that I know you did was recently speak to some global executives on positive leadership through COVID-19. Tell us about that.
Yes. Well, I wanted to speak with the executives in particular because they are dealing with a tremendous amount of stress right now. All of us are, but they are at the top where they have to actually, they have to face the fears. They have to try to save the organization in order to save a lot of people in the best way that they can. So I really think it's important to help the leaders feel safe and help them feel good so they can be the best they possibly can be to be able to manage the rest of the organization. I know as a parent, I have to be the best I can be. I have to eat the best food, be the strongest I can be psychologically as sound as I can so I can be the best parent. And so when you're a leader in an organization, it's like you're the parent of the organization. So I really wanted to reach out to this group, and they were very receptive and they wanted to hear me speak. They put me actually at the front of their roster to be able to speak with them about positive leadership.
I love the fact that you just said they put you at the front, because when it comes to being able to give to anybody, you have to give from somewhere. So you have to be full to be able to give out. It's almost as if to drive your car, you cannot be running on empty. Your tank has to be full. You have to have something inside of you to be able to more effectively lead and drive change. So I think it's important for us as change leaders that before we can go out there wanting to lead, whether it's a parent, you gave a great analogy, that we also are giving from a place of fullness. So tell me, what were some of the strategies that you shared with the leaders and you can share today with the change leaders that we have listening on how they can positively lead change or positive leadership, or how they can feel themselves, first of all?
Sure. Well, the important thing is the importance of authenticity. So it was very important that when I gave my presentation, just as I'm giving my presentation now, that I'm not going to pretend that leaders are not exhausted, that they're not tired also, that me myself, me sitting here, that I'm not tired. So it's very important to be authentic. And in applied positive psychology, there's also something called second wave positive psychology. And what that is it really is about recognizing that the negative in our life often informs the positive. And so it's sitting in balance with the heavy and the dark, as well as, the optimistic, bright, forward thinking thoughts that you may have. And so it's really important that when I talk to them, that I just have a complete awareness that both are happening at the same time. And I think that the awareness that both are happening at the same time can help you sit in sort of the center spot. If you can sit in the center of the heaviness and the light, then that's where you're going to be able to find the balance to lead from. So that's what I talked about in the session is there's a space between all the thoughts. So imagine in one hand, if you're holding out your hand like a waiter, on the one hand are all your past thoughts. And your past thoughts could be even from a few seconds ago. Think of all the thoughts that these leaders have constantly. all the thoughts from the past are on your left, and all the thoughts about your future are on your right. So your future even being the next second. I know how busy our minds are. So the next second could be, what are you going to do next? What's that next email? What are those thoughts on your other hand? And then you'll notice that in the middle there's a space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in that space where you can sit and where you can actually lead from, because it's calm, it's not cluttered. And so it's important that they just have that awareness that there's a lot of noise going on, and that if they can find that spot, that sweet spot, then that's really going to help them get the energy they need to go through this tremendous amount of change. So what do they do when they're in that space? Well, when you're in that space, if you want to apply positive psychology to the organization, then it's when you're in that space that you consciously make the effort to bring positivity to the organization. So what I mean is there's different ways of doing it. You may think, I'm too tired to lead. I'm just too tired. I don't have the energy to be joyful. Well, the interesting thing is there's something called relational energy. And what that means is, even if you don't feel like saying hi to that neighbor or saying hello to that colleague, once you do, your mood actually elevates a bit. And so if you recognize that relating with people will help energize you, then it makes interacting with your colleagues when you're feeling overwhelmed a little bit better, because you're aware that you're doing something positive, or even having the energy in that center space to be able to share a joke or be able to talk about something that outside of all the chaos, something about that individual's life or something they're working on, or just that quiet spot allows you to have the energy for those conversations that are important, that build high quality connections that you don't think you have time for, but you actually do.
Oh, that makes sense now, because sometimes I find myself, I'm tired, I feel a little bit overwhelmed. There's so much to do. I have one meeting after the next, and I'm pretty surprised how I get through those meetings. I come into those meetings not very energetic. I start off the meetings with, oh, I'm not sure how I'm going to get through this meeting. But I get into this meeting and I have all this energy during that meeting just by interacting with people and talking to people and helping them strategize and coming up with solutions and brainstorming. But I wonder how I was able to do it, considering I came into that meeting feeling a little bit tired. So, what I'm hearing now is that just making that initial effort to discuss and share and speak with people, you can feed off that energy.
That's right. In fact, like, the longest study on happiness came out of Harvard, and it was a 75-year study. And what they found is that the people that are the happiest are those that have community.
Okay.
So, and those that have relationships. So even if you only have two close friends, it doesn't matter. It's those people are the happy ones. So
Mm.
that's why when we're able to keep the lines of communication open and build our own communities through these small connections, that it will actually help us. Now, there
Oh,
is definitely space for being tired. So
mhm.
I understand what back to back meetings are like, and they are very exhausting. So I'm not going to pretend that you don't get tired. However, I think it's really important that in those moments of being very tired is that you have some self-compassion. So recognizing that you're tired because you're actually taking on a tremendous amount right now. And I think that being aware of that yourself and being kind to yourself as you're feeling your fatigue will help you get through this huge change.
So that's something for us leaders to think about that will help keep us going. But what about the people we're leading? What about the employees? What about team members, the organization? How do we motivate them to be positive right now? Because outside of COVID and what we're going through with this crisis, this pandemic, we also have change constantly happening in organizations. We have new types of technologies. We have the feeling that change is constant. People are constantly experiencing new types of changes. And there's this term that people tend to use, change fatigue. The change never stops. So, how do you motivate people as leaders and your organization and team members to just keep on going, to feel positive about everything? How does one do that?
Well, I think it has to do with awareness. So the language that is used a lot in change management is these words like change fatigue. But the reality is that change is constant. It is
Hmm.
constant. It's constant from the moment you're born. And so I think we have to use a new language in organizations to be able to talk about change,
Mm.
because it is a part of life. If you make it an extra burden, then it becomes an extra burden. But if you recognize that it is part of what we do, then it makes the messages and your day-to-day relationship with change different, because you're moving with it, recognizing it's there all the time. Now, as far as the positivity piece and motivating employees, well, if your aim is motivating, it can be really hard, but there are some subtle things you can do. For example, you can do things like you can bookend your week with positivity. So if you have a big team, you shout out a hello to your group at the beginning of the week. And at the end of the week, you say, have a nice weekend. So it doesn't sound like a lot, but actually hearing that voice and hearing that from your leader and from your team, it's actually very grounding to
Mhm.
know that they're paying attention. Because
Mm.
sometimes we can get, especially working remotely, you can get lost in all of your work and start to perhaps get disconnected from the bigger picture. So hearing your boss's voice bookending the week is one sample of what they can do that is quite subtle, but is also positive. Even in your own interpersonal relationships, like for example, at home, it's important to give hugs to your loved ones in the morning and in the evening. So at home, we bookend our days, but leaders can bookend their weeks in positivity for them. And again, it's not shouting rah, rah, rah. It's just a subtle, like, I see you. I hope you have a good week. And I thank you for the work you did this week, and have a good weekend. Just a subtle thing like that. Or injecting joy is something subtle that they can do. They can tell a silly joke, or they can ask somebody something, or just feel free to bring humor. Even though it's a stressful time, there's still moments where you can add some humor, bring a smile. And when somebody smiles, it changes the energy. And you're
Yeah.
really wanting to shift this energy. So it's not saying that the negative energy is all going to go away, because that would not be truthful. But if you could have moments of shifting the energy, then that would be really wonderful. So, for example, one thing that I really love to do with groups, whether it's a small group or a large group,
Mm.
is I ask them the question, and this helps to shift the energy. I say to them, what's the best thing that's happened to you in the last 12 months? Now, when you say 12 months at a time like this, when all you can really think about is the
Mm.
last like few weeks because of COVID-19, when you say 12 months, it really helps to put things into perspective. Oh yeah, I do have joy in my life. These amazing things have actually happened to me this year. And it helps to take you out of the zone, small zone you may have put yourself in,
Mm.
into more expansive thinking. And it's the expansive thinking is really the objective of positive psychology. You want to raise the energy up so that your thinking is more expansive. There's something called the broaden and build theory. And what that means is that when you're positive, you're more able to be creative. And when you're more creative and have more interesting interactions with people. And when you're having that energy of positivity and these wonderful feedback you get from having these interactions, it builds your energy. So it's that relational energy piece again. People like to work with positive people.
Yes.
You feel that. You know that when there's a certain person that joins your webinar, you're like, oh, I'm really glad that Jeremy's on the call, because he's just amazing.
Mm.
They say studies out of the University of Michigan School of Positive Organizational Scholarship say that of the top organizations, those with positive energy networks are 3 times more successful. So,
Okay.
of the top performers, these positive energizing networks, so these positive people that are sort of scattered throughout the organization, that's called a positive energy network. So, the more successful companies have more of those positive energy networks.
Oh,
So,
wow.
it's
I
definitely,
love that.
yeah, so it's something that's valuable. We all know who that bright spark is when they walk in the room. So wouldn't it be nice if more of us could be the bright spark?
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about how you use positive applied psychology or applied positive psychology to lead change initiatives.
Well, the way I use it is I talk about the importance of framing your thoughts. So when we're talking about change, so for example, I gave a talk to the Toronto Police Services 911 responders. There were 175 people at the conference, and they were going through one of the largest transformations they had gone to. And this is public knowledge because it's on their website. So the 911 responders are having a technology change from, instead of answering the 911 calls on the phone, it's all going to be computerized, so they may have to see visual images when that was not what they signed up for. So a lot of fear around change. And so I gave them a talk and I talked about how there's different ways of looking at the world. There's two lenses. You can look at the optimistic thinking perspective and the pessimistic thinking perspective. So the pessimistic thinking perspective, these people were scared because this change was happening. They wanted it to be business as usual. The optimistic thinkers would think, what are the possibilities with this new technology? Maybe we could help people even more because we can really understand what they're saying instead of trying to guess what they're saying by visualizing it while they speak. So there's different ways of looking at the world. Now, the optimistic thinker tends to look at the world of possibilities, and the pessimistic thinker tends to shut things down and shrink. So you can't say who has the right perspective and who has the wrong perspective, but we do know that optimistic thinkers allow for expansive thinking and broader and moving forward momentum. And that's what you want in organizations. So when I was talking to the 911 responders, it was really about helping them learn how to think optimistically about the change that's happening, because there are possibilities in change. So just like, for example, for COVID-19, something that I shared with the executives is, yes, we're very aware that the world is in a financial crisis. There's going to be a lot of layoffs. Everyone is going to feel it at home and at work. So those are all definite realities. However, the other side of the coin, the positive perspective on this horrific event is people are spending more time with their families. The global community has never worked together ever the way it has now. They say that I read something recently and it said, you look outside and you think it's bleak. The grocery shops are awful. However, a different perspective would be when you see that people are not there, it's because they're helping. So you see the different perspective. One is a perspective of fear, nobody's outside. One is a perspective of everyone's helping. That's why they're inside. So there's just different ways of looking at the same situation, and one will give you energy and help take you forward, and then one will, you might ruminate and kind of stagnate. So that's what positive psychology is it's really trying to get you into the state where the energy moves forward, because it's seen as the helpful energy to help carry you through when you really need to be carried through.
That's interesting. And I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm within an organization now and I'm leading a project or manage an initiative, what are some of the tactical ways I can work with employees to get them towards that positive way of seeing things? It might be, I don't get to speak to them, but my leader gets to speak to them, or the sponsor of the project gets to speak to them. So, what are some of the tactical ways you can introduce that into an organization and with the team that you may be helping to come on board with the change? Any practical things you can think about?
I think that when you're on the other side, when you're one of the workers, a big gift that a leader can give is the gift of their presence. They want to feel seen. The worker is going through a tremendous amount. I mean, the undercurrent behind all of this is fear, and they're worrying about their families. So if the leaders pay attention to the family needs that the individual has and works with them, they're going to feel safe. And when they're feeling safe, they're going to be able to perform.
Mm,
And so I think that that's really huge. It's just really, and even in change management as a whole, you want people to feel safe as they're going through change. So not to mention when you're going through tumultuous change. So really paying attention to their family, how their family works. For example, where I'm currently working, I'm a very early riser. And so I actually said to my boss, I'd like to give the best that I can to the organization. So I would like to work from 5 a.m. until 2 p.m. So
okay.
that way I have 4 hours pretty much to myself before the children wake up, and then they can take care of themselves for a little bit in the morning. I can focus on my work, and then I can also take care of my family, and then I can finish my work day around 2 p.m. So
Okay.
that's really working for me. I feel heard. Also, next week, they're going to be having more online learning through schools. And so I've blocked out my calendar in 15-minute increments so that I can toggle back and forth and help my children get set up with their online learning while also being able to maintain my workspace. So because of that respect that I'm receiving as a worker, I am feeling like giving and delivering and doing the best that I can back.
Okay, I love that. I'm getting tips here. The positive outlook to be having the pessimistic outlook, the authenticity, and even some leadership tips here is visible leadership. When leaders are very visible and present, I'm helping people to feel like they're being heard, not just like do, but what can you give? And sometimes people feel that you have to give something tangible. A gift you can give to somebody is just that gift of feeling heard. And you give that example and it shows it. They say something and it's within their power to make it happen. And just that gift to you to say, we hear you, we appreciate you, and we want to help you through this and work with you to make it happen. That's something small that builds buy-in from employees towards their leaders because they feel that this person has my best interest at heart, and they
And
feel more encouraged and wanting to work with you to make change happen.
that's right. Absolutely. And we also know that this isn't necessarily brand new. We've heard a lot about the importance of psychological safety. I think it was Google that first started producing the research that when people feel safe, they're better able to share their ideas, come forward, feel safe. So if we want to feel safe during a regular workday, then we want to feel safe, especially right now. So that's why even when leaders are tired, they can give a little, just by giving their attention, a little bit of their attention, it can just help with that feeling of safety and help with that next step.
Okay, awesome. So when I think through a change process, I think change is happening now and there's going to be life after that change. And right now, one of the things everybody's talking about is the new normal. So, do you see a new normal? What should people expect as a new normal post the pandemic when everything has settled down? What do you see life being like and work being like and leadership being like? Or maybe there's no new normal. Maybe everything is just going to go back to the same. What are your thoughts on the new normal?
Well, for me, with my optimistic lens, so I am naturally an optimist. So I have to throw that out there that I am naturally an optimist, although it is still a learned activity. You can practice optimism and get better at it. But what I hope happens is that a lot of people, perhaps who were not able to work remotely before, a lot of parents, perhaps, who weren't able to have the freedom of working remotely, I'm hoping that this shows that working remotely actually is a possibility. So
Mm,
I'm hoping that some, moms and dads, that they have a better life after this, because I'm hoping they'll be able to work from home more often should
mm,
they want to. I'm also hoping that people have a lot more appreciation for the contacts that they do have. When you do get to see people in person post COVID-19, you're going to feel so grateful to be around them. And we tend to think, oh, I'll call that person next week. We'll grab that coffee next month, and then all the time goes by. But when you have that in-person experience again, and it's going to feel amazing, then I think we're going to have just a greater level of appreciation for our communities. That's what I
okay.
hope.
I love how positive you're being. I have a different view to that. I feel that we're going to come out of this and we're all going to be excited to go to work again or see people or go for this gathering. And then a few months down the line, we're just going to go back to our old ways. Looking at Maslow's law, once your basic needs are met, and we now start to aim for the next thing. So I'm really looking forward to having all of this over and seeing how that changes things. See whether people have a new appreciation or people go back to their old habits. But one thing I'm sure about is that there is going to be a paradigm shift. There is going to be a new business as usual. We are going to start to work differently, see things differently. Expectations are going to be different as well, but how that happens and what becomes of it and how it settles, I'm very curious about it and looking forward to seeing all of that.
I'm
So,
absolutely curious as well. But there's one thing that I know for sure. And
okay.
what I know for sure is that you can't unlearn something.
Hmm.
So that I know for sure. We're all learning new ways of being independent, of being resourceful, of taking care of our work, of taking care of our families to a whole different level. So with that,
Okay.
that's happening.
We'll see how that goes. What's one final thought that we want to leave people with today?
That the positive and negative are happening at the same time. So to think it's all negative is inaccurate.
Mm.
That's what I would want to say.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. And Samantha, how can people reach out to you? So if somebody wanted to connect with you, how can they reach out?
The best way to reach me is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That's my preferred platform.
Okay, so we have Samantha's name there. So if you want to connect with Samantha, by all means, connect with Samantha. Samantha, it's been great having you. I love the positivity that you've brought to today's discussion. I love the feeling ourselves first as change leaders to be able to lead change with other people. I love the lens thing, the lens to which we look out to the world is what we receive in ourselves and the helping people. Love all of that. It's been great having you and having a conversation with you today. Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay, then. Bye, everybody. Until next time.